Pink Dialogue. I'm your host, Scotty. I'm here with my co-host, Saur. There is a very interesting transfer rumor going around today. We're going to talk about it. There's a very interesting game that happened on Saturday night. We're going to talk about it. And you and I have yet to give any awards. We're going to talk about it. But let's start with this, Saur, my friend, my co-host. You went on vacation. How was your trip? Did you have a safe flight back?
I had a fantastic trip. As you can tell by my mood and the slight tan that I have, I'm refreshed. I am ready, and I wish I could have spent a little bit longer in paradise. But you have to come back to reality eventually. And honestly, it's been a great reality to come back to. Into Miami, dominating football games again, transfer rumors, a buzz, awards to give out, so many things to do tonight, and I'm looking forward to it. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine. I'm interested in how this episode's going to go because normally we spend 90 minutes talking about a game, but I think we need to spend the next 20 minutes talking about another trip that someone related to Inter Miami had over the past few days, and that's owner Jorge Mas, who, as Michelle Kaufman and the Miami Herald reported, was in Madrid to try and work on potentially finalize a deal for Rodrigo De Paul, Argentine international. He's a 31-year-old midfielder. And then we heard from Fabrizio Romano, and we heard from Gaston Edul, and we heard from Herman Garcia Grova, and we heard from Tom Bogart. This feels way more real than just a generic transfer rumor. This feels like it could happen. And I think there's so much intrigue in how it happens. What does it mean for Inter Miami and all of that? But let's just start with, how are you feeling about it?
First of all, I'm very disappointed that you picked this picture of Rodrigo De Paul when you had his corn hair just sitting right there on the internet that you should have put up. We need to work. We need to work with the graphics department from next time onwards to decide on these things. I am excited. This is a 31-year-old midfielder who, if Inter Miami brings in, would automatically be one of the best midfielders in the league. There is so much happening here. I don't know how to compile my thoughts and present a cogent argument here, but he's such a dynamic player, and I think there's so many elements that if he can translate his abilities in the MLS, would suit into Miami abundantly. We can talk about how he would fit, what would his role be, how Inter Miami can make this work. But if I could give you a single simple answer about how I'm feeling about this particular transfer, very excited. He is dynamic, box to box, does so many things, both defensively, offensively, wins balls, creates opportunities, brings verticality. His nickname is the Motor. And we have been missing. There you go. Thank you. The graphics department is living up to its name. We have been clamoring for this Inter Miami midfield to level up in terms of physicality and athleticism and in terms of ball winning capabilities. And we worry about the fact that Yannick Bright's the only one capable of doing that consistently. Bring Rodrigo De Paul in. He is an upgrade on every single piece that we have available. This is a very exciting prospect that I would love to see how Inter Miami can make work.
I have said many times on here that I do not follow the Argentine national team. That's not something I care about. La Liga is not a league I pay a ton of attention to, and Atletico Madrid is certainly not a team I watch a ton of. So I will wholly admit that this is sort of an uninformed opinion. He feels to me like what Benjamin Kramaski could be if he reached his pinnacle potential. Like, he's a hardworking, athletic midfielder who can do defensive work, who can do a little bit going forward, except like the technique is refined you maxed out the technique, you maxed out the defensive solidity, you maxed out his mental awareness. Like, this is what I think Kramaski would be like at his, if he gets to his absolute potential. It would be Rodrigo De Paul, who is I don't know if world-class player is the right word, but like in that next tier at the worst. He's a go-to midfielder for one of the best 10 teams in the world, and I think that's um, justified based on his talent level.
In any
Uh,
other league, sorry, go on.
Okay. No. So I think this is a super exciting talent, and for Inter Miami to be able to get a player like this, I think that's incredible. To me, what I think is so interesting is the implications of this, because I think that really takes us in some interesting directions that we're going to go to in a minute. But as far as we're talking about the player, in my head, he's maxed out Benjamin Kramaski, which is a player I'd love to see in this league.
No, you've absolutely nailed this, because that's exactly what I was thinking as well. This is if you want to define him, he's a box to box midfielder. And Benjamin Kramaski is the exact same player, perhaps 10 years behind development in terms of where Rodrigo De Paul is. He has so many different assets, but for me, this is a player that if you put him in any other team, in any other league, it's the it's the kind of player that every team values for the underrated things that they do on the pitch. He may not be the immediate superstar that you bring in and shines the light on himself or does phenomenal things on the pitch game in and game out, but he will constantly and consistently do good things on the pitch that make you feel like, oh, this is a player that is underappreciated and undervalued. And when he's taken out of the side, that's when you actually start to miss such players. That's the kind of player I think Rodrigo De Paul is, sort of an unsung hero in the middle of the park. And if and when he fits into Miami's middle, I think you've absolutely nailed it. It's like having a Benjamin Kramaski who's at the peak of his powers. This is not a player who's in the swan song of his career. He's 31 years old. For a midfielder, that's actually, I would say, a prime age for someone coming into the MLS. He should be able to perform at the highest standards for another 2-3 years, if not more. He still should be able to compete physically and athletically. And again, it's all about translating some of those abilities into the MLS. We've seen players come in from the other leagues, from the big European leagues, and not perform in the MLS. But I think that has to do with more motivation than anything else. And Rodrigo De Paul coming in to play for Messi, he's been considered Messi's bodyguard for the longest time now. And I think that in itself is such an exciting possibility. I think he takes you a step further than Benjamin Kramaski does.
Oh yeah,
For all measures, but I think he also has that added element of being a little bit more clean on the ball. I don't know if Benjamin Kramaski has that in his game at all, but he is so crisp and clean and sharp in the way he plays, and I think it's going to be fantastic for Inter Miami if they can bring him in.
Yeah, just before someone comes into the comments section and crucifies me for that one, like certainly this is a much better player than Kramaski, and I love Kramaski, but this is like if Kramaski hit his absolute peak. But you're right,
The parallels are justified.
There's a sort of technical quality that I'm not sure Kramaski will ever get to, but if he does, like I think it would look a lot like this. There's so many things to talk about. Let's start about how it could possibly happen, because I think that's the biggest question mark. Inter Miami has 3 DPs, and Atletico Madrid's going to want a transfer fee for this player who is not out of contract. He's out of contract next summer, so there's 1 year left. He's apparently not interested in renewing his contract this summer with Atletico Madrid, even though Madrid wanted that to happen. So they've lost bargaining power when we're talking about transfers. And so if you're a Premier League team or a Bundesliga team or whatever, and you want to come in, like, it's easier to pay 15 million than 25 million. But when you're talking about the MLS, this is a huge outlay for anybody. It's maybe not league defining, but it would be the biggest outlay in Inter Miami history, certainly one of the biggest outlays in the history of this league. And in fact, when we're talking about guys that are global superstars, almost every single one has come as a free agent. And this would be paying for a transfer fee for one of those types of players that, 15 million euros is the number that's being thrown around today. It's 18, 19 million dollars. That's, second or third biggest transfer fee ever in the MLS. And then on top of that, he's got, I guess, a €6.5 million salary. So we're talking about $7.5 million just to match his current salary. And you'd imagine he'd get a little more than that for coming to Inter Miami. And then you have some other aspects to this where the World Cup is next year, and he is a big player for the Argentine national team. Now, if you want to be perfectly honest, I don't think this is going to jeopardize his spot on the team, but it might jeopardize his starting role. It might make him a guy who comes off the bench. I don't know the Argentine national team well enough to know what the odds of that happening are. Maybe he's the perfect fit. And I have to imagine if he's teammates with Messi, who is definitely going to start the World Cup next year, like it can't really hurt him that much. So I think it would be a phenomenal signing. The question is, how in the world can Inter Miami pull it off when they have 3 DPs already, and they're going to have to pay him both DP money and a DP transfer fee? And that's the question that no one really knows, because it doesn't seem easy.
I think in terms of the DP transfer money, we should be fine on the transfer fee because Inter Miami A has the money. We just got so much money from the Club World Cup, and I don't think that should be an issue. The biggest concern would be the salary. Sure. Yeah, I think the biggest concern.
I'm talking about fitting it within the the roster rules.
Yes,
because
that
Inter Miami
I think
has
is
3
the biggest
DPs.
question. Yeah,
and so here's the truth. It's not going to be Jordi Alba because Jordi Alba signed a contract moving forward. It's not going to be Lionel Messi because he's Lionel Messi, which means it has to be Sergio Busquets. And it has to happen before De Paul come. Like, obviously, there'll be the agreement, but if they agree to this tomorrow, and by the way, I should also say, this is not confirmed. It feels very serious. It feels like it's a very serious decision, but maybe his girlfriend or wife says, I don't actually want to move to an English-speaking country. Like, who knows? These types of things can always fall apart, and it is not confirmed. But basically, I think this means Sergio Busquets leaves the team.
I think in our head, it's done, right? In our head, we always go to the point that it's done. Let's assume it's done, at least for the sake of this conversation. You should also mention a very important point that Fabrizio Romano mentioned, who by no means is the authority on Inter Miami. He has got stuff in Inter Miami's transfer windows wrong.
Well, no, but he would know Atletico Madrid.
He would know, yeah. And he's said in his statement that Inter Miami is looking to bring him in this summer, but if that doesn't materialize, then they'll bring him in next summer for a free transfer. So Inter Miami seems serious in this particular player.
No, but more than that, Inter Miami, I don't think would be negotiating with Atletico Madrid, which they reportedly are, if they didn't have sort of a green light from the player. So
exactly.
It feels like this is going to happen. It feels like there's a very good chance this happens. So let's just leave it at that. But the implication is Sergio Busquets is not an Inter Miami player anymore. And we're not talking about the end of the season. We're talking about in 10 days, which is something.
Does it surprise you, though, that Sergio Busquets...
It surprised me that Sergio Busquets is going to leave the team halfway through the season. Yes, that absolutely surprises me.
I feel like maybe I've rationalized it in my head, but it almost feels like Sergio Busquets he seems to be coming to an end of his footballing tether. I didn't expect it to be this soon by any means, but I wouldn't be surprised if he's dealing with something because these last couple of months he has struggled a little bit and he has had...
I just disagree with that.
Yeah, perhaps. Maybe I'm trying to rationalize it and make sense of something and just... It's my bias that's probably talking towards this, but yeah, it's going to be difficult to even imagine Sergio Busquets not being part of the starting 11 in 10 days if that's the case.
Okay, I want to, just from Busquets' perspective, listen, there's a couple of things here. Maybe he wants a 6-month break and then he's going to come back next January where he will definitely have a spot on a TAM contract. Maybe he decides, you know what, I just played in the World Cup and I think that was the last huge event. Like that was, I'm happy if that was the end for me and he's satisfied to retire. And if it helps Inter Miami and Messi to do it 5 months earlier, like, he's okay with it. Like that could be true also. So I'm sure there's a way for him to be a part of this team next January. Maybe he gets 6 months and decides like, let me try retirement. I don't know. We have no idea what's going on with
his contract. Can't be brought down, right?
Can't be bought down, and neither can Jordi Alba's, and obviously neither can Messi's.
So we should
he would have to be bought out which means that they would be off the roster for the rest of the year minimum.
And I think we should mention, if Sergio Busquets wasn't willing to opt out, Inter Miami wouldn't be trying to make
Well,
this work.
hold
I
on.
think
Mistiano just figured it out. Mistiano says Busquets is going to step out of the limelight as a player and just become the new manager, where, by the way, they would be totally justified paying him the same salary. I know it's a lot for a coach, but it's no longer a part of the roster rules. Wouldn't that be something?
Yeah, I feel like we should be running the club, man. The drive ping dialogue into Miami team sounds perfect. No, this wouldn't have been happening without Sergio Busquets' consent. First of all, I don't think he would be pushed out of the team by any means. I highly doubt it.
No, I agree.
So there must be something happening behind the scenes with him if that's the scenario. And I think this has more to do with Sergio Busquets considering his time in football coming to an end, or at least him not feeling up to it to continue at this level, at least at this point. As you mentioned, maybe he decides to come back in 6 months, who knows. But this decision would not have been possible without Sergio Busquets' consent. So there's definitely some factor that needs to be considered when it comes to Sergio Busquets' playing ability.
There's this, his desire to play, I think.
Yeah, his desire to play. That's a good way to put it.
JVL says, would half of the salary would they be able to do what LAFC did with Gareth Bale, who took a non-DP contract for the rest of the season so that LAFC could keep all their DPs. And then there was like an agreement to pay him a DP salary the next season. That wouldn't work with De Paul because the transfer fee would make that impossible. So that wouldn't work. No. That is sort of what they talked about with Kevin De Bruyne earlier this summer, but obviously that's not what's happening. Here's some other thoughts I have. One, maybe the MLS is about to change the roster rules. Maybe they're going to say this summer, 4th DP. I don't know. But maybe the owners of Inter Miami do know, and maybe they're even saying, hey, let's push the pressure to make this happen by bringing in one of the biggest signings in the history of the league. Like, there's clearly some information we don't know. I think we're speculating that the most likely is revolved around Sergio Busquets, but that might not be true. And maybe it's unfair of us to act like it's certainly that, because maybe there's something else to it. And then the other aspect of this is how this affects Inter Miami, because Sergio Busquets has to play. And if he's not around anymore, it kind of fits perfectly for two of Inter Miami's bright young defensive midfielders to have an opportunity to play in that role alongside a box-to-box midfielder who would take a lot of the pressure off from the star perspective without forcing them to play out of position. I just think if you bring in Rodrigo De Paul, all of a sudden it makes Federico Redondo a lot better of a player if he plays next to De Paul as opposed to Sergio Busquets. And then the same thing for Yannick. Well, Yannick Bright's a great player already, but it would really prime Yannick Bright to be everything that he could be. And you'd be putting a lot of responsibility on his shoulders that he's certainly ready for. But that would be the new implication of this. So those two players, I think, would benefit a ton. This is the bodyguard, so to speak, of Messi for the Argentine national team. So maybe that means we can move Cello on because we don't need him to be the bodyguard anymore for Messi. I noticed he was getting ready to fight a couple players this weekend, so maybe he knows he's got to step up his defensive Messi. There's just so many aspects to this that I think are so interesting. But maybe the biggest one is the last time we got on the podcast for a normal episode, not just the pregame. We talked about some of the roster decisions that have made the future not look as bright as what the last 2 years have been. And we even speculated at the end that maybe there is room room is the wrong word. Maybe this roster needs a little bit of a reset because if Messi's going to be on the team for the next 2 years, and that's what I expect to happen, I don't think they will be as good if you are running out Busquets and Alba and Luis Suarez as your star players. Now they can still be around, and I think as long as they're willing to take a TAM contract, you can they're always invited. But as far as DP players, I think you really needed to refresh things, and this is that. So we complained a week ago. 6 days later, the club is responding.
There's
And
only one explanation.
well,
Everyone listens to the Drive Pink dialogue. As
it,
simple as that.
it's not that that's the explanation, but it's the fact that the club sees the same things we're seeing and they're trying to address it. And by the way, they're doing it in an ambitious way. And we're talking about Busquets like leaving the club. That is, I think, a huge deal, honestly.
Let's contextualize this, right? Sergio Busquets leaving the club is a big loss for us. We're going to lose his vision, his quality in the middle of the park that honestly I don't think can be replaced by any player that you might bring in, because his control of the tempo, his ability to be press resistant, he just brings so much. But you'd be blind to suggest that Sergio Busquets doesn't have his not faults, but limitations that Inter Miami has to fill in through other means. And I think you touched upon a really important point that this could be that step in the right direction where, of course, Sergio Busquets gets transitioned out of the team. De Paul gets brought in. We are going to lose some aspects of Busquets' playing ability, but I think it adds a little bit more of that X factor in the middle in terms of youngsters getting an opportunity to show themselves with a little bit of freedom. And I think that freshness that it brings is what you mentioned, which I completely agree with. It adds something of value to the middle,
I,
and I think that's really important.
I want to stand up for Busquets because I actually don't think Rodrigo De Paul is a better player than Busquets.
Absolutely not. I completely
So,
agree with you.
so actually, I think you're losing a lot that you're
Hmm.
not getting back, and the things you are getting from De Paul actually are things you have a lighter version of already. But I think just like the idea that we have to reset this roster because some of the contracts have gotten a little funky and we are a little over reliant on this style of player. And if we want to sort of move into the future, we need different profiles of players. And by the way, we have some young players that fit some roles that can be given more opportunity, but we can't if we're forced to give certain players playing time in specific spots. And so then we have to be more flexible and then maybe it hurts the team overall. Like, that's all a part of it. But I think if they make this move, they're going to do a lot between now and the beginning of next season, if I'm
Can
being
I
honest.
can I add something to this? So I think we need to be clear here that if this doesn't materialize, if Sergio Busquets stays on, I think you and I would both be happy with the way it's going. Neither of us are trying to push for Sergio Busquets to be pushed out. He's a unicorn of a player. I don't think you can bring in anybody that would be a like to like change for Sergio Busquets. Yes, you can bring in somebody who has similar assets, but I really doubt that you can bring in somebody who has the same positive elements and then covers the negative elements of Busquets. He's a unicorn in the world of football, and it's going to be really hard to replace him. And I think if you do plan to replace him, whether it's now or whether it's in a year's time, this is a good first step to do that. I think this is a right way of thinking about it. Would Paul be the right answer? I'm not sure. But I think the way the club is thinking, the way they're approaching this with ambition, is what I think is very promising. And whether it materializes or not, that's another question. But I think, in terms of thinking about the transition plan and future strategy of how to have a life beyond the Barcelona boys, or at least beyond Sergio Busquets, maybe Luis Suarez, I think the mentality is correct, and we'll see how it plays out. But this is the right approach to it.
Well, and I think you said it best. Busquets is a unicorn, and Rodrigo De Paul's not a unicorn. Like, he's a
No.
very good player, but he's a normal style player. Busquets was like a freak in certain aspects. Okay, let's reiterate. We don't know if this is happening. It feels like this is moving towards happening in terms of DePaul coming to Inter Miami. That can always fall apart until it's fully announced. But Inter Miami has the money to pay Atletico Madrid based on the asking price that we've been hearing. They clearly have the money to pay his salary, and it feels like they have the desire. So really, the biggest question that makes me feel like whether this is going to happen or not is a matter of, are they going to be able to make it happen with the MLS? When I first was reading this, I was like, well, maybe you make this deal happen and then you loan him back to Atletico for a year so that he can have the World Cup prep, and then you already have him guaranteed and locked in for next summer. Like, I was just sort of like wondering how this makes sense. But the MLS roster rules are what really feels like the thing that's keeping this at bay, because it means we have to sacrifice something going the other way. For but with that said, everyone's reporting they're trying to get it done now. They want him now,
Hmm.
or this summer. So they must know something we don't know, and whether that's Busquets stepping away, um, or it's a new roster rule or wrinkle that allows them to make this happen somehow. Like, it feels real.
Yeah, and it's probably the case of the club knows something that we don't, and I doubt Sergio Busquets is going anywhere. I'll be honest. So um, maybe we'll be in for a surprise. And can you imagine a team of Busquets and De Paul in the middle of the park? Oof. That's a great midfield. Probably the best midfield in the MLS.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else you want to get into about De Paul, or should we move into this game?
I think let's talk about the game because we're going to run out of time otherwise.
Yeah, okay, we'll do it quickly because basically Lionel Messi had the worst 2 touches of his Inter Miami career back to back, and it led to a goal for Montreal. And then they kicked their butts for 88 minutes, and they scored some absolute worldies, and they had the ball hit the post a couple times, and there were some incredible saves by Jonathan Sirois that kept it 4-1 instead of 8-1. But I thought they looked great. Should we stop and talk about Messi's poor 2 touches because it's the only time we'll ever have an opportunity? There was only one like history being made on Saturday night, and it was Messi's bad touches, because for as great as those goals were, that's what he is as a superstar and a freak of the sport. The bad touches are something we've never seen before. So, should we just take a moment to appreciate watching history?
I want to maybe contextualize this in a Gen Z way. Have you seen that video of 2 groups of penguins coming to meet each other? And then one of the penguins from one group accidentally starts going with the other group. And then his friend calls him back and is like, listen, you're going the wrong direction. Messi for the first 2 minutes looked like a heron that was flying north in the wrong direction, and then had those 2 really bad passes. And I was like, "Oh, Scotty's gonna give him the heron that flew north tomorrow because this is this is bad. This is history making. We've never seen this." And it wasn't just one bad pass; it was that big trampoline touch that went into no man's land. Thankfully, Messi recovered, got it back, and then passed it straight back to to the Montreal striker. I was like, oof, this is a heron that flew north moment. And then somebody in the Inter Miami team whistled to Messi. I was like, no, we're shooting the other way. And Messi was like, oh, yes. And then he just decided to take the game by the scruff of its neck. I was like, listen, guys, I needed to make it easy for the other team, give them a little bit of hope, make them think that they're in it, and then just absolutely wreck and crush every single dream that they have. It was dominance. It was overwhelming the opponent, and it was suffocating them. Everything that you say, Inter Miami did that for 88 minutes. It was a very open game. I don't agree with you that it would have ended 8-1. I think it would have been a 7-2. But that for me was the most fun part, because I obviously watched the game after the fact and I knew what the scoreline was, but I was still really surprised by how open and fluid the game was. Montreal had a couple of opportunities that we spoke about in the pregame show, but Inter Miami was relentless. They kept coming. And as you said, once they had one, they had another, and then Sierra had to make a few saves. I thought our attack was very fluid, and the passing and the way we were playing the game plan that we had, we can talk about it all, but Inter Miami looked very good coming off the back of the Club World Cup and coming back to win this game, because we went down 1-0 at the start of the game. So great mentality, great gameplay, uh, really well drilled, and very slick performance. Great way to kick off the MLS campaign again.
You know how some players don't have the vision to make those incisive passes forward? You know what I'm talking about? Like, we see it with Redondo. He's
Yep.
very safe on the ball. I don't know if Messi has the vision to make those incisive passes backwards. And because he's never tried before, we've never seen it. But I will tell you, him passing the ball backwards was pretty ugly. Um,
Yeah, it wasn't
so
good.
it's a good thing his skill set goes the other way. Okay. Obviously,
By the
something we'll
way,
never see again. There's nothing to be worried about, but funny that is two words that just came back to back. Go ahead. Sorry.
you mentioned incisive pass. There was this one pass. I think it was the 65th minute. And I think that would have been the pass of the tournament, pass of the MLS, because he took the ball, I think,
To
beyond the
Tadeo
halfway
Allende.
line
Yeah.
to
That was
Tadeo Allende,
nice.
and I wish he had buried that, because that would have been the pass of the season. It was beautiful. It was stunning. I think Messi was on song tonight, man. He was brilliant. Or 2 nights ago.
Okay, I will just say I'm reading a lot of the chats now, catching up on the chat. I want to spend the next hour talking about the future of Inter Miami and what this transfer
Yeah.
means for our striker situation, etc. But um, so I'm actually blaming you for this because we should have been doing this episode yesterday so that we could spend another hour today just talking about Rodrigo De Paul. Um,
Listen, we wouldn't be doing an episode today because we have a game in 2 days. So you should thank me that we can talk about Rodrigo De Paul, because
well, we
otherwise we
would
would
have
have only
we
got
would have
to it
gone we
in
would have gone
Wednesday.
live to talk about Rodrigo De Paul. Don't you
Yeah.
worry. Um, There was a moment in the 14th minute where Sergio Busquets intercepts the ball, sees the pass to Jordi Alba, puts it forward. I mean, it was just a beautiful pass. And so when
Beautiful.
I hear someone talking about Sergio Busquets and being passed it or whatever, it's like, no, like we're seeing a game to game. I thought he's had some exceptional games lately. And I thought he was great in this game and he had some really nice moments. That being one of them. Jordi Alba hits the post. So it stays 0-1. And on the rewatch, I realized Inter Miami controlled this game for 88 minutes. It didn't necessarily feel that way the first time because you're losing 1-0, and they feel like maybe a little desperate going forward. But they just controlled this game. They finally get the breakthrough in the 33rd minute when Tadeo Allende steps to his left, looks like he's trying to find a pass, doesn't see one, and says, "Let's ride." Whips it into that near post with an absolute banger. The first of four worldies. Um, he had that goal earlier in the season against, I believe, Houston or Charlotte, maybe, where he takes the ball to the left side and with his left foot he hits it over the goalkeeper and in. That was his best goal of the season. But this was second, I think. This was really impressive.
I have stuff to say about him during the awards, so we can get to
Okay.
it then.
So then a couple minutes later, Messi, the first of two absolute incredible goals where he's dribbling into that defense. We see him so often dribble the ball sort of at the edge of the 18-yard box. This time he's doing it about 8 to 9 yards out. And if you are going to let him as a defense dribble the ball in that part of the pitch, he's going to score goals. He's going to score goals. And that's exactly what he did. And all of a sudden, Inter Miami goes from down 1-0 to up 2-1, and it was cruise control from there. Maybe cruise control is the wrong word. It was, we're fine. Let's just go have fun from here.
I do want to say, I think or throughout the game, it may have felt on the first watch that Inter Miami was not necessarily on point, because there was a lot happening going the other way as well. Our defense was retracting back. It was very spacious in the middle of the park. I think it was a back and forth game, but I think that was the purpose with which Inter Miami was playing. They wanted to take everything forward, and they were willing to leave some spaces for Montreal to have that space to hit them in transition. And I thought we did really well in transition. Everyone got back very quickly. Everyone plugged the gaps really quickly. Montreal had a couple of really good opportunities where Sealy missed one. Ustari saved a couple of opportunities, but I think that was the game plan. We weren't concerned about their attacking threat the way we would be concerned about, say, Columbus or Cincinnati. We knew we could beat them up by just constantly attacking them. So we were willing to give that up and eat some pressure on transition. So I know people would say our defense was quite leaky. There was a lot of space, but I think that's how we were set up to play. And I was fine with it because it looked really, really good going forward, and maybe not as pretty going backwards, but we were still fine. We didn't necessarily feel under consistent pressure at any point during the game.
I'll be honest. Dante Sealy had like two dribbles that I thought created some danger. But aside from that, and they had a set piece opportunity that could have been a goal, and then obviously the one where Messi hands them a goal. Like, they didn't create much.
And Jordi Alba
The,
stayed back.
the
Jordi Alba
back
did
line was
not.
fine. Yeah,
Jordi
like I
Alba
thought
didn't
the
move
defense was
forward that
fine in this
much. I
game.
thought they were fine as well. I thought that's
Other
how they
than
were
maybe
set up to play.
Other than maybe that set piece opportunity where Prince
Mhm.
Owusu heads
Yeah.
it across to Dante Ceiling, he's not really ready for it. It could have been a goal. He might have been offsides anyways, but that's just another continuation of the set piece problems that we've had. By the way, this goal we just talked about with Messi, Luis Suarez with an incredible header to set him up going forward. It's a long ball to Suarez, and he just has the technical ability to. He has the sort of talent to just head it in the path of Messi, who can then go take on the defenders in the box. Second half, it's Telasco Segovia who breaks the game open with another just unbelievable goal. I have more things to say about him coming forward, so I guess I'll leave it at that. And then Messi puts the dagger in the 62nd minute, just a minute and a half later. Again, an assist from Suarez. I'm no one in the world can dribble through five guys like Lionel Messi can, and it's a privilege we get to have him on our team. And I don't know what else to say because that's just this sort of special talent that he has. And Inter Miami
Best
is
goal
4-1.
from Messi this season?
I don't know, that first goal in the first game of the season where he, in the freezing cold, sort of takes it down and then hits the back post. In the game we needed to win, it was tied 0-0 in the freezing. Like that one, I think the moment makes that special. But it was. I mean, it's really nice.
It was exceptional, yeah.
A couple other opportunities, like Tadeo Allende, as we mentioned, that beautiful pass from Messi to Allende. He puts it through the legs of Jonathan Sirois, but it gets just enough of his calf that it bounces up and it hits the post. That could have been a goal relatively easily. Luis Suarez has an opportunity where Jonathan Sirois sort of puts his foot out and has a nice save. I mean, it was really all Inter Miami. The subs came on and they were able to sort of have an impact. We got to see Baltasar. And the thing I loved most was that the team never sat back. They just kept coming and coming and coming and coming. So I love the attitude. I loved having all these world-class goals. I love the team coming into this game with confidence. There was no let off after the Club World Cup. And so honestly, I thought everything was exceptional.
No, I think the midfield and the forward line was exceptional yesterday. Kramaski, I thought, looked really, really good in the middle. Underrated, did not do the same level of work, at least on the stats, as probably Segovia and Allende, but I thought he was exceptional, winning balls in key areas, passing it off, setting up really good opportunities for other players in and around him. Segovia, once again, just keeps proving that if you put him in that right spot, he's just going to be phenomenal. I know you have more to say about him. Maybe I do as well. And then Allende, I thought, again, great performance. We can talk about individual players in the awards, but I think when it comes to linking up the middle and the forward line, this was the best Inter Miami has looked, at least in the MLS this season. It was flowing. It was very, very deliberate in the way we were playing. There was a game plan. The tactics were quite actually different to what we're used to. It was direct football. We were punting the ball long into Luis Suarez. He would either bring it down. If he lost the ball, Inter Miami would be on the counter press immediately, get it back, and then hit Montreal. But we were playing quick football, very, very fast, slick, quick passes, 1, 2, 3, and straight into the final third and creating opportunities there. I thought it looked brilliant.
You know what it looked a lot like? When Inter Miami beat Columbus 5 weeks ago, 5-1. 5-0. I can't remember. Anyways, this is Inter Miami at its best. And you think about the Orlando City game last year at the beginning of the year when they won 5-0. When they can win the ball in the midfield and quickly attack in transition with the technicality and precision that our front players have in Suarez and Messi, you just are going to overwhelm them. And I think that really works for Inter Miami. And the three key words for me have always been to intimidate, overwhelm, and suffocate the opposition. And sort of, you don't necessarily have to do that with 80%, 75% possession. But if you're doing it with 15 opportunities on goal and 7 high quality opportunities on goal every game, like you're going to create that. And all of a sudden the opposition is going to be a little bit more nervous and they're going to be making mistakes, and you can regain that fear factor that Inter Miami has seemingly lost this year. So I thought it was great. I want to get back to this in a minute, but I want to mention for Montreal, because I thought Jonathan Sirois had a really nice game, despite the fact he gave up 4 goals. Dante Sealy, I've seen him play 10 times over his career, and most of those were at youth level. And even despite the fact that that was his first, like this was his first big appearance at senior team level, I thought it was the best I've ever seen him. So I wanted to give him credit. The back line, Brandon Craig and Fernando Alvarez started for them at center back. And that's their 4th and 5th choice center backs. And so when we're talking about why their defense didn't look great, or how easy it was for Inter Miami to sort of crush them and overwhelm them and dribble through them and get space on them that they have no business allowing Inter Miami to get, I think it's important to remember that these are 2 young center backs that really aren't playing that much. Their number 1 center back, George Campbell, he did come on in halftime, but he got the first half off. And then their 2nd and 3rd choice center backs, Jalen Neal and Joel Waterman, both out for this game. So I think in a very real sense, defensively, Montreal punted on this game, and Inter Miami did exactly what they were supposed to do when a team does that, but just something to keep in mind.
And I think one advantage Inter Miami has was the depth, because Montreal didn't necessarily have any players to bring off the bench that could change the game at 3-1.
Well,
Inter Miami was in cruise. Yeah,
and
Inter
Montreal's
Miami
not a
was
good
in
team,
cruise
so.
control. They tried. I don't know why they keep going to the man marking. It plays into Inter Miami's hands. I think Inter Miami had the best game plan for that, and we scored 8 on them now in 2 games, and their man marking gets them down. It can work against some teams, but Inter Miami, I think it's a death sentence. So
it doesn't
they
work.
were fine.
It doesn't work against anyone. Let's be clear. This is the worst team in the league.
Yeah.
I do feel bad for their fans, because a year and a half ago, they brought in a coach who was supposed to be young and exciting, and they pulled the plug on that project 2 weeks into this season and basically threw away the whole season when they did that. So basically being bought into a rebuild last year, only to have the rebuild be thrown away this year. And then next year, you're going to have to start with a new system, a new coach, and a new rebuild. Like, it's a tough situation for the fans. I do feel bad for them, but
And their season's over now.
well, it's been over, but yeah, their season ended in week 3 when they fired their coach. And so now if you're Montreal, like, you have to go through the whole year just to start a new rebuild next next winter. It's a really tough situation for them. Makes you happy to have owners that will go to Madrid to try and recruit Atletico Madrid players to
Hopefully.
run your midfield. Yeah. Well, no, but just the ambition to go try that makes you really excited. I mean, I want to get to awards, but I did like the fact that we played ultra aggressive throughout the game. The fact that we played this sort of mid block where once they enter a position where we want them to be, they kind of swarm, they win the ball over, and they push it forward. It's what we did against Columbus. It's I think our best games have mostly been that strategy, and I'm okay with that if that's what we're going to do moving forward. So we did it against a good team in Columbus. We did it against a bad team in Montreal. So I do wonder if this is something we've sort of stumbled upon now that we're getting back into MLS play, and we might see this a ton moving forward.
I think it's a really fun strategy to watch. I prefer this over just passing it around the back and taking your time dissecting the opponent. I think
it's not that. It's not that though, because that's okay, fine, whatever. You can prefer it. But what killed me is when Inter Miami would just bunker. They'd get a 1-0 lead or a 2-1 lead, and they would spend 25 minutes just playing in their own box, trying to repel the opposition. And we saw that so many times in the first half of the season. And that game in Cleveland against Columbus was sort of the epitome of that, where basically at halftime they said, we have a 1-goal lead, we're going to sit in our own box. But so many times we saw this team get conservative. Instead of going for the kill, they just sat on their 1-0 lead. And it was absolutely a coach's decision. It doesn't play to our strengths. And so the fact that he didn't do that tonight is really what I'm happy about. Like, I understand what you're going to say about possession and stuff, but like, to me, it's like, never, ever, ever sit in your own box for more than the last 5 minutes of a game. against MLS level competition. And they didn't do that. And I really appreciated that.
Yeah, no, I wasn't going to make the point that you thought I was going to make, but yes, you're absolutely right.
Should we talk about the subs real quick? Because it was a lot of the subs you would have expected. David Martinez potentially making his last appearance for Inter Miami. Baltasar Rodriguez got a real
He's so
run out.
fun to watch, man. He's so fun to watch. I don't have an award for him, so maybe I can talk about him right now.
Yeah, go
But
ahead.
the way he just takes the ball, dribbles into the middle of the park, and then just doesn't care about who's around him, what's happening. He just plays adventurous football, and it's so fun to watch. Sometimes pays off, sometimes doesn't. But I'm gonna miss him. I think he's been a fantastic watch from time to time, and sometimes you need that dynamic centre back in your team.
You can totally understand why they're not going to keep him because of the price tag and because of the roster realities. And just the fact that he's not a first choice player for this coach. But you're absolutely right. Like, that doesn't mean he doesn't have real talent that's exciting and fun to watch. Baltasar was fine. I thought he
was a little bit more assertive.
I thought he had a very interesting role in this game that maybe we can talk about in awards or maybe after. And then Ryan Saylor got some minutes, but I think the big disappointment is, despite the fact we were up 4-1, no Alan Obando, no Santi Morales, no Leo Alfonso. Really, Ryan Saylor, the only sort of end of the bench guy that got minutes in this game, which I think is a little sad because I think this is the perfect opportunity for Santi Morales to come off the bench and play, and Obando and guys like that. So
If not now, then when? That's my question, right? So
there's been a lot of talk about Obando lately. And I did want to just make this clear, at least in my opinion. Like, it has nothing to do with Obando. It's Luis Suárez. Yeah. Luis Suárez, and this is a topic we didn't really get into. Maybe we should talk about it at the end. Apparently considering retirement, this might be his last season as a professional footballer. And he's going to want to play and he's going to want to have fun with his friends if this is really the end for him. And so it's not about Obando being terrible. It's about Javier Mascherano not taking Luis Suárez off because Suárez doesn't want to come off, and Javier Mascherano doesn't feel comfortable doing that. So I feel bad for Obando, but I don't think this has anything to do with him, other than the fact that he's not sort of flexible enough to play other positions and get time at winger or whatever, because that's not the profile player he is.
Yeah, he's a striker, man.
Yeah. Okay. Do you want to get to awards? You ready?
Let's do it.
Okay, let me make sure I don't. Okay. You go first this time, I believe. Saur, I'm a gentleman, so I'm going to let you go first. But before I do, I will let everyone know that on the show, we give out 6 awards after every game: a Heron of the match, a Heron that flew north, and 2 individual awards each. What you got for us?
I'd be crucified if I gave it to anybody else. I think this is well-deserved, far and beyond the best player on the pitch, despite 2 touches that cost Inter Miami the first goal, and Ustari his clean sheet. Lionel Messi was out of this world in this game. 2 absolute screamers, 1 world-class pass that should have been the best assist of the season. Need I say more? Lionel Messi is back to having fun on the pitch. And when he's having fun, nobody can touch him. Except the ball.
No, I mean, he's the best player. I'm a little disappointed you gave the Heron of the Match award to him, because I didn't know who to give the Heron that flew north to, and it would have been easy to give it to him for the goal that he gave up.
You could have given it to him.
No.
We've never done that, but
there's no doubling up on this episode.
Is that in the rule book?
It's
I'm
in
not
the
sure.
rule book for sure.
Okay.
It's right there next to Grayson's a gentleman. Okay. I don't know what else to say, man. He's phenomenal, involved in all the offense. He could have had another 2 assists, 1 to Suárez, 1 to Tadeo Allende. He could have had 2 more on top of that, just because this team was just cruising. He wanted to get other guys involved. He almost had a hat trick with that 3rd goal that was offsides by 6 inches, maybe. So, yeah, great player.
No, you can't give it to anybody else when he's having the game of his life.
Anything else? I mean, there's no words to talk about him.
No.
We get to this every single time. He wins man of the match because He's just that great. Okay. Heron that flew north. This is a tough one because really everyone played really well, and I feel guilty having to give this out. But I am going to give the Heron that flew north to Jordi Alba, and here's why. Because I know that sounds ridiculous, but Inter Miami gave up one goal, and it was clearly Messi's responsibility, and Messi's off the board. So I thought, okay, who didn't score a goal that should have scored a goal? And the options were Tadeo Allende, Luis Suárez, and Jordi Alba. Tadeo Allende got a different goal, so I can't give it to him. Luis Suárez had a couple assists, so I can't give it to him, which means Jordi Alba, who had an opportunity in the 15th minute and hit the post, that should have been a goal. I don't know. It would have been a tough shot anyways. Maybe you could have passed it off to Suárez and gotten your assist. But either way, this is a tough game to give out a Heron that flew north. So I'm giving it to Jordi Alba.
I mean, the advanced stats agree with you, so you're not that far off. I don't think this was a game for him. We didn't utilize him the normal way that we usually utilize Jordi Alba. He wasn't bombing down the flanks. I think there was a recognition by the coach and the tactics that we were employing that Dante Sealy could be a danger. And I think Jordi Alba stayed back for large parts of the game. I could only count like 3 or 4 instances when he was up front. No cutbacks from him as such. Of course, that one clear-cut opportunity that he had where Sergio Busquets had him clear on goal, should have buried that. I don't think he was bad by any means at all. Of course, very harsh. You can't give it to anybody else because I think everyone played really, really well. Maybe I could have considered giving it to Sergio Busquets, who I thought had a really good first half, but slightly poor second half, especially at the start of the second half, where he gave away the ball twice, then went in for a really rash tackle, which cost him a yellow card. So perhaps that could have been an option for Heron that flew north, but it's your award to give, and I can understand why you gave it. Difficult award to give for this game. And Jordi Alba was perhaps not the most exceptional player on the pitch, so goes to him, I guess.
That's all I have to say because I thought he was fine generally, but someone's got to get the award. So
Yeah.
okay, Saur, lead us off with the good ones. What is your first individual award?
By the way, if you steal one of my awards, my
It's just
third
the same
award,
thing.
my third award is going to be really funny, and I think you're going to absolutely hate it. But I think I've already stolen one of your awards. I'm going to go for the Off the Scoville Chart award.
I hate you so much.
No,
This is a terrible award, honestly, because the
it's a
whole
great
thing is
award.
overplayed. And you know what? It's
By
such
you!
a bad award.
I've
It's
never
such a-
given
yes,
that award to
no,
anyone.
That's
by
fair.
you.
It's been overplayed by me.
by you.
But now that it's been overplayed, it's just you're just picking it. You know, so I think we should skip your award. And
No,
go
no,
straight
no,
to
no,
my
no.
award.
This is the rule, and you have to live by it. It's my award, and we're going to give it. Tell me, Scotty, who does this award go to? And I promise my next award is really good.
I don't want to say it because it's going to
Say
ruin
it.
my award.
Your
It
award
goes
would
to-
be
it goes to
something like
Telasco Segovia.
Hot
Okay.
Sauce Award or something. And that's what you would have given. So
No, I had a great award for him. And
No, you
now I
did
won't be able
not.
to give it.
Do
And I'll
not
tell you my award
lie
in a
to
second.
me.
I'll tell you my award in a second. This is Telasco Segovia.
yes, it is. Telasco Segovia with the Off the Scoville Chart Award because he started off as a Tabasco sauce level heat when we first saw him play for Inter Miami. And slowly and steadily over the last 6 months, he's now risen to a point where he's reaching high Scoville heat levels. He's like a Naga chili pepper or a Carolina Reaper because he is hot in the middle of that park. That goal, if Messi hadn't had the performance that he had and Segovia was scoring that goal in any other game, we would have been waxing lyrical about him. It was phenomenal. His backlift of the leg was so slight, but the power that he generated and the shot that it was just beautiful. It was tasty and it was spicy. And he had a great game. He had a hot game. He is fire hot right now. And that's why Telasco Segovia gets the Off the Scoville Chart Award.
I'm just so disappointed.
In yourself.
It's a great award. No, I'm disappointed that you get to go first this episode. That's really the only thing that disappoints me because he had to be the choice. Here's what I will say. Normally, I rewatch the game a second time. This time, I turned the film on and I watched Segovia for 72 minutes, and I realized I'm missing so much of the rest of this game because I just keep watching him. His movement off the ball, his defensive work has taken a step up. He's always had the technical ability, but now he's working harder to find himself open and to be a part of this offense. The reason finally clicked, the reason he's coming off in the 70th minute is because the coaching staff is telling him, work harder during these 70 minutes so that you can become a more impactful player while you're on the pitch. And he is. And it's not just the goal, which was phenomenal, but what he's doing minute to minute has taken a huge step, has taken a legitimate step forward. I don't know when it first started, but certainly during the Club World Cup, you saw it. And maybe you could say, oh, the intensity and the magnitude of the moment can bring that out of a player. But we saw it again on Saturday night. And I thought it was like really, really, really impressive. More so what he did in the first half, just off the ball, the defensive work, the effort, the hustle, like getting himself in a position to be a part of this offense. And he's becoming he's becoming a star. And the consistency is going to come with it, and the realizing your potential and figuring out how to be a part of this team. Last year, we got to a point where I think we could have realistically called Diego Gomez one of the three best players on this team. It wouldn't shock me if by the end of the year or at some point during one of our top 20 drafts, we have Segovia as cracking inside that top four.
He's getting there, man. That's why he's off the Scoville chart.
Here's my award. And I will say that's a pretty good award, except for I don't think there is such a thing as off the Scoville chart, but high on the Scoville chart. That's a pretty good award. I was going to give him the J. Cole Feature Award because J. Cole's big break's probably the wrong word, but his big debut was a feature on a Jay-Z song called A Star is Born. And that's what's happening with Telasco Segovia. He's a stud, man. I don't know what else to say.
Absolutely. All right. What's your first award?
I feel much worse about these next two awards, if I'm being honest. I'm giving the Movers and Shakers Award.
You've given this before. Yeah, you've given this before. But I think it's going to go to Luis Suárez. Because he moved and he shook. And he didn't score a goal, but he had some body movements and pirouettes and pivots that created goals for others. And I thought he had a really good game. So Movers and Shakers Award goes to Luis Suárez. And now Star of One is stuck in my head.
Couldn't be more wrong. It's a great song, by the way.
It is fantastic.
No, it's not Luis Suárez. And by the way, if I've given him this award before, I apologize. That did not come into my thinking about this at all. The starting lineup, I think, was moved and it was shaken, and it was done so by Benjamin Cremaschi, who I think belongs in the starting lineup until Yannick Bright comes back. Because he's better in the MLS for what Inter Miami needs than Federico Redondo. That's not saying Redondo's not a good player, and I thought he had an excellent Club World Cup, but the last MLS game Cremaschi started and was incredible. This game he started, and I thought he was the right piece for what Inter Miami was trying to do. And so as we move forward, I would like to see Cremaschi start again on Wednesday and have him have an opportunity to sort of shake up the established depth chart that we thought the defensive midfield double pivot was, which really was just the three guys, and him sort of shaking his way into that mix and sort of moving some other guys out of the way. So Cremaschi gets the Movers and Shakers Award.
No, great award. I didn't have an award for Cremaschi, but I thought he had a fantastic game and deserves to be recognized, honestly. You said it. I think for what Inter Miami needs in the MLS, the athleticism, the combativeness in the middle of the park, Cremaschi brings that. But also, if you're trying to play in the way that you played against Montreal, I think Cremaschi is the perfect key for that role. You're not keeping the ball. You don't want to be disciplined. You don't want to constantly ping the ball around in the back. You want to have players who can win those second balls, who can do the counter pressing, who can close down the spaces and can swarm the opposition when they're in the middle of the park. And when you're playing that medium block, you need somebody to win the ball back. Cremaschi does that. He makes some really good off the ball runs. He has the ability to link up really well. I think him and Segovia together have been a revelation for me. They've been playing very, very well together. His passing has improved over the course of the season. I think him generally as a player has improved over the course of the season as well. I think his breakthrough in 2023 was fantastic to watch. 2024, you could understand why he didn't get the same level of minutes because he was overplayed in that first season. I think this is the perfect progression for him. The way he has been managed this season, it's been good, but he's also proved with his performances that he can be silently very, very important and very crucial for this team. Great performance from him.
Well, let me remind you, this is his second time playing in his natural position or close to
Yeah.
his natural position all year because, before that Columbus game, they were playing him as a wide midfielder / winger type player and a little bit as a fullback. Like, he was not played where he should have been played for much of this season. And all of a sudden he's in his natural position where he's more comfortable and he's played really well. So,
Yeah.
time to shake things up with the Movers and Shakers Award. Saur, what you got?
Okay, the next award that I have is the Radar Blocker Award.
Okay. The Radar Blocker. Is this a figurative or literal award?
Can't tell you. You'll figure it out.
Okay. This award goes to who deserves an award?
It's a literal award. But it gets a bit, you'll have to think a little bit before you get to the logic of it.
This goes to Oscar Ustadi because he's been blocking shots, and that's where my brain's going.
That's too literal and that's too straightforward. I literally just told you it's going to take some time. Okay. What do radar blockers do? They jam the radar.
Yeah.
There you go. It's in the name. And something has been flying under the radar recently. What flies under the radar when the radar is blocked? A missile. Who has a missile? Tadeo Allende. But also, he has been quietly, silently, and slowly been flying under the radar. And Scotty is known as the facts man in this podcast for good measure. But I've got a fact for you. Matías Rojas scored 9 goals in all competitions for Inter Miami in his entire season last year. Tadeo Allende is on 10 goals already in all competitions. He could, by the end of the season, end up with 20 goals. He's been flying under the radar in terms of his goal contributions. And I think it's a very underrated aspect, especially when your striker isn't scoring that many goals. To have your winger just constantly, after every 2 games, get the ball in the back of the net and how is really, really promising. And he could have had 3 goals tonight. Or 2 nights ago. And I think that's been flying under the radar, man. He's been having quietly really good performances. He may not have consistently good 90 minutes, but he just scores the goal when you need it. And then he started the comeback. And I think he deserves recognition for that.
You're right. 10 goals, 7 in the MLS, 2 in CONCACAF Champions Cup, and then he had the goal against Palmeiras. I've been trying to say this for months now, that this is such an undervalued player. People complain about his first touch, but the truth is he's given you goals, and goals win games. And I didn't realize it was up to 10. I thought it was at 7, but 10 all competitions. You're absolutely right.
You didn't realize because it flew under the radar. And that's why my award is fantastic.
Here's the problem with your award. Your award doesn't imply under the radar. It's just a radar blocker. Like the logic of your award was great. The name of it could have been better.
Fair enough.
It's okay. I'm not going to talk ill because you're about to see my next award.
Oh, wait. I had a backup award. Wait till I tell you what my backup award was. You would laugh your head off.
Anyways, Tadeo Allende, stud. I really like this player. I get that it's frustrating when he has a touch that takes him out of shooting position or something to that nature. When he turns the ball over because he just doesn't have a great touch. His touch is weirdly bad for how good and well-rounded the rest of his game is.
But it's not that bad. I think it's fine.
No, it might be the worst on the team.
No.
Yeah.
No, it's not.
I think it might be. It's bad. But he has a rocket. He can whip it. Like he does so many other good things for the team that it's totally worth having. Um, and the fact that he's contributing that level of goal contributions is like for me even kind of eye opening. And I'm a big fan of his. So, um, I mean, if he has 20 goal contributions this year, or 20 goals rather, not just contributions, like what does that mean for his future? Because Inter Miami only has him on loan. He's going to go back to Celta Vigo at the end of the season, and like you're talking about getting a really nice move to some other club
Hopefully,
in
yeah.
a big league in Europe. So, um, get that autograph before he leaves forever into bigger and better things. Uh, Good award choice. Poor award name, but that's only because you've set a high standard with how great your awards are generally. Okay, my last award is the Don't Cry Out Loud award.
Oh, is this another song reference?
Yeah, actually.
Don't Cry Out Loud award. So the way my brain is thinking is something is going really well for a certain player on this team, and you don't want to cry it out loud because it'll alert everyone else to how good it's going. Either that or this award goes to Baltazar Rodriguez because I know you want to give an award to Baltazar Rodriguez, so that's probably why. Um, don't Cry Out Loud award goes to Luis Suarez because he didn't cry much and he just went about his business and had a great game. I just want to emphasize that he had a good game. So either him or Baltazar Rodriguez, one of the two.
Actually, I was thinking about who I should give when I was trying to figure out who to give awards to, and I was like, I should give a award to Baltasar because we got to see him, I think, for the first time really in a while, and then I like did something and totally forgot that I planned on giving him an award. So then I came up with this award. The Don't Cry Out Loud award goes to Sergio Busquets because not to get emotional, but we might be watching
This
his
could be
last
the
games
last
as a
one. Yeah.
professional,
Yeah.
and that's something.
Dude, he had such good, like 2, 3 moments in this game. The first one, the pass to Jordi Alba, fantastic. The second one was the pass to Messi, where it was offside, but like nobody else can do that, man. Nobody else can do that. And I would take. Everyone's been saying that he hasn't been great. I think he's been fine, absolutely fine. And I would take some small error here or there for everything else that he brings to this team. So I will start crying if he leaves the club. Honestly, this
No, and maybe this is redundant because we spent so much time talking about Busquets earlier in this episode, but he is a unicorn, and Rodrigo De Paul is not going to replace what Sergio Busquets can
no.
do. And listen, he wasn't ready for PSG. Like being able to compete at that level might be past him, but also PSG is the best team in the world, as we're
You're
finding
not going
out
to play them every
again.
week.
And so for the MLS, he's a unicorn. He's a superstar, and more importantly, if this really is sort of the end of Sergio Busquets, because if this DePaul thing is really going to happen, there's a number of potential reasons that could make this all fit and work. But I think the most likely is that Sergio Busquets says, "I'm happy to retire," and
Yeah.
I got to play in another World Cup, and that was a lot of fun. And the chase to win the Supporter Shield is just like I don't need that anymore. And if it's helpful to the team for me to leave now as opposed to the end of the season, then I'm willing to do that. Like that's sad because I think Busquets has been not just for this club, he's been a great servant and a great player for us, but in his career, like we could be watching the last few games. So don't
That's
cry out
actually a
loud if you're
really
crying.
sad way to put it. But yes, damn.
So should we talk about Baltazar now?
Do you want to talk about Baltazar? Who do you want to talk about?
He had a very interesting role in this game. He was sort of a free floater going from right to
Yeah,
left and
he was
left to right.
everywhere.
And I thought that was really intriguing if that's how we're going to use him. Now, listen, he came in the 72nd minute and the game was out of control or out of reach for Montreal. So, maybe he's just that he was only playing a floater role because of the game situation. But if that's what he's going to be, that's a really weird and interesting dynamic. And I don't necessarily know how this is going to fit in. He did have a shot on goal. I think two maybe shots. Not like particularly dangerous, but the fact that he sort of has the confidence to try it is interesting. That means probably he's done something like that before in practice or previous team. So I'm interested. I think Baltasar could be a real factor for us moving forward.
Yeah, I thought it was the perfect moment for him to come into this game because there was no pressure. It felt like he was taking a lot of initiative, as you said, floating around. He wanted the ball at his feet, passing it around well, taking up good positions, had a couple of really good shots on goal as well. And at a time when the game's dead and buried, I think it gives the player a little bit of confidence to play freely. I don't know if that's going to be his role. I'll be honest. It feels very similar to a role that Segovia has been playing, and I'm not sure whether how the two of them fit together. This team is screaming for a out and out winger, and the fact that we have another player who's a midfielder being utilized in a wide position, I don't know how it plays out, but I thought he was decent this game. He had a good enough showing for whatever minutes he got, and I think I want to see more from him. I'm not sure if he's going to play that floater role from the first minute when he starts a game, but I thought it was the game state that allowed him to be a little bit more free.
I'm curious to find out what he is, and I think we're going to
Yeah,
have a runway here to see
yeah,
what he's all about. And it feels like we're getting to sort of a lull in the season, and it really shouldn't feel like that. And we're going to get to what comes next for Inter Miami in a few minutes here. But like I think Inter Miami needed some sort of refreshing, and maybe that will come from Rodrigo De Paul. But guys that are on the roster already that could really spark this team could be Baltasar if he can be an impactful player. And whether
yeah.
that's as a starter off the bench, just like having another guy that you can sort of feel good about being on the field and can spark some things would be really nice to have. Um, I thought Suárez was good. Like I know he didn't get a goal, but he got a couple of assists, and he was pulling guys out of position in a really dangerous way. Now, like I mentioned, Montreal wasn't playing their best, and so it was probably a lot easier to do, but he was doing it, and it was really creating a lot of lanes for Inter Miami to operate in. And so I thought Suarez did everything I could have wanted from him in this game, other than finish the one or two chances at the end where Sewa made a nice save. But I thought he had another. I've been very happy with Suarez of late.
I had an award for Suarez, and I'm not very proud of it. And I called it, I called it the Boing Boing Award. Because he had like a couple of moments where he just boinged the ball to Messi and Messi scored, and then he boinged the ball again and Tadeo Allende was in space, and he was just playing the perfect hold up role, and it was like a trampoline that you just threw the ball at and he would just send it out into a really good space for other players to run into. He wasn't playing in front of the goal as much as we want him to, but I think in the game state that we had, that worked because he was setting other players up. You said it, taking up good positions, dragging the defenders away, and boinging the ball here and there. So the Boing Boing Award was for Suarez for doing that.
And we've seen him do this a lot recently, right? He had the assist to Allende for the goal against Palmeiras, and um, going back to that Columbus game, he had a nice sort of similar. I'm not going to hold it up. I'm going to receive it and sort of just bounce it off my chest or my head forward for the runner to have an easy opportunity on goal. So, um, like this is a new aspect to him. And by the way, his hold up play, I think this year has been much better than it was last year. And
Yeah.
I don't know what that's about, but it's nice to see. Uh, Anyone else on your radar? Because I want to talk about the schedule coming up, and there's a couple other things we probably should have talked about at the beginning, but
Yeah.
we should touch on.
Let's do it.
Inter Miami plays the New England Revolution on Wednesday. They're back in MLS play, obviously. They play the New England Revolution on Wednesday on the road at Gillette Stadium. It's on the turf. Wouldn't surprise me if Messi and Suarez don't play. Wouldn't surprise me if Yannick Bright, David Ruiz, and guys coming back from injury don't play. So that could be sort of a game where we're hamstrung from a personnel perspective. Not only is it on the turf, but it's also on 3 days rest, and you're going to have another game next weekend that's, I think, bigger. So it would make sense to rotate that game. Next weekend, or this upcoming weekend, they play Nashville, who is number 2 in the Eastern Conference. Then next Wednesday, they play Cincinnati, who is number 1 in the Eastern Conference. That game's at TQL Stadium in Cincinnati. The following weekend, they play New York Red Bulls at Red Bull Arena. Those two at Cincinnati and New York Red Bull were our 2 worst games last year, 2 worst trips. And then the following week, we come back and play Cincinnati, who's top of the Eastern Conference right before the Leagues Cup. So our 5 games before the Leagues Cup are away to the New England Revolution, and then Nashville at home, Cincinnati on the road, New York Red Bulls on the road, and Cincinnati at home. Cincinnati first in the East, Nashville second in the East. 3 of those 5 games are against some of the best competition in the league. Actually, after the Leagues Cup, the schedule gets, I think, much easier. Inter Miami has a chance to reclaim their season, I think, over these next 5 games. If they can get 13 points, 15 points, they're going to be viewed as the best team in the MLS. And if they gets 5 points, 6 points, I think the Supporter Shield's gone. So this is actually a huge stretch of games coming up. I mentioned it quickly, but like a lot of the games we play in the last 10 or so of the season are much easier games. The Toronto FC game, the New England Revolution at home, Chicago Fire, 2 games against DC United, the LA Galaxy were terrible. Like the last stretch is actually much easier. This is the big one in terms of like marquee games, and it's all in quick succession. We play both of the next 2 Wednesdays. So this is a big stretch coming up.
I actually don't mind it. I think Inter Miami is on a little bit of an upbeat right now, and other than the lack of options and depth and the injuries that we have, if you can put together a good string of performances against Cincinnati, Nashville, Cincinnati, Red Bulls, that gets you so far. And I think, as you said it's going to end up setting Inter Miami up really well for success going into the Leagues Cup, where we're going to play with a lot of confidence. But then also it's going to make it, if they do it, and then it'll make the rest of the season a lot more easy because we're going to have easier competitors against us. So this is a rough patch to get through, but I think Inter Miami is going into it with the right form, and we'll see what happens. I don't expect us to win every single game. It's going to be very hard. By the way, how did Nashville end up on top? They're on this second. Yeah,
they've also got 9 penalties this year. They've got 9 penalties this year. That's crazy. That is so many penalties. Inter Miami, I did the math. Inter Miami hasn't had 9 penalties awarded since Lionel Messi came to Inter Miami in over 2 years.
So yeah, tough run, but I'm excited for it, man. I want to play the big teams. I want to be able to claim that spot back. And
okay. I'm talking about this from like, sure, it's a fun schedule coming up. Sure, like as a fan, that's fun. If Inter Miami doesn't do well, their goals are shot. I think you're not going to win the Supporter Shield.
No,
you're not going to go into the Leagues Cup with confidence. You're going to go in limping because there's a lot of games and. You're going to go in tired. You have a lot of games to make up on the back end. So basically, like if you don't do well here, your season is a lot of your goals for the season are out of reach.
No, this is setting yourself up for success. And I think if Inter Miami doesn't do well, or failure, yeah.
And so if you want to win the Supporter Shield, you have to do well here. And if you want to be first in the Eastern Conference, you have to do really well here. And if you want to have home field advantage throughout the playoffs, you have to do really well here. And so, like, from a fan's perspective, it's like, okay, yeah, it's fun to play the best teams. But truthfully, for the club, this is the biggest stretch remaining of the season up until the playoffs start, because this will determine whether they can be A, the favorite going into the playoffs, B, have home field advantage, C, compete for the Supporter Shield, like all of those things. If you lose these 2 Cincinnati games, you're not going to win the Supporter Shield.
Yeah.
And you're not going to have home field advantage in the Eastern Conference. So, and that's a very good Cincinnati team. They got 2 studs up top for them in Danke and Evander. So, like, I think this needs to be really on Inter Miami's fans' radars, that all of the things we were negative about, and Javier Mascherano, and can this team pull it together, and are they built right, and are they relying on Gonzalo Lujan or Cello Wiegand or Federico Rolando too much, like all those things we were complaining about, now is when they come home to roost, or the team steps up and says, it doesn't matter. We got this. And I think that should be like everyone's understanding going in. If they do really well here, like I think all of the questions get put to bed. Javier Mascherano he's fine. He's good. Like not just from a job security perspective, but from like a in my head perspective. He can redeem himself, and Redondo and Cello and Gonzalo Lujan, or like whoever it is, They can all redeem themselves, and Inter Miami can be the favorite and the face of the MLS at the end of this stretch when the Leagues Cup starts on July 30th. 5 games. 5 games until then. And it's the whole of the season.
I'm excited. Bring it on.
Okay. A couple things we should have mentioned at the beginning. David Ruiz gets a new contract. Deserved. I'm very glad that he's getting a new contract. He's one of these sort of golden generation of academy players that Inter Miami brought through around the same time. And it's been fun to watch them come through. And I think they've made a huge difference for Inter Miami's ability to compete at the level they've been able to compete at and have the depth that they've been able to acquire. Kremaski got his contract extension last year, or his new contract, his new big contract. David Ruiz looks like he's getting it now. Noah Allen and Ian Frey and Yannick Bright, I think, are all three guys you have to sort of do in the next 6 months, especially Ian Frey, because that contract expires at the end of this season. Noah Allen and Yannick Bright, I think maybe you can take into the offseason. But I think by the beginning of next season, they got to have new contracts or be playing for a club in Europe because they've earned the move. So fun to see David Ruiz get that contract, and hopefully he's back on the field soon.
Yeah, and hopefully he has a breakout season next year, because I think he's getting close to it. Of course, that injury hasn't helped this season, but well-deserved, and congratulations to him on it.
I will say, if Inter Miami does go out and sign Rodrigo De Paul, that probably doesn't help the breakout for David Ruiz next year, because that would be the superstar taking your spot head to head. And then the other news is, it was reported earlier, middle of last week, that Luis Suárez is thinking about retiring at the end of the season.
Yeah. I think it's time, man. I think it's time. He seems to be struggling out there a little bit, and unless he's willing to take a bench role on this team, I think he should go out with his head held high. And that's all I'm going to say about that. His performances have been good recently, so no complaints from my side. But I think he's getting close to the retirement date.
I don't think we're going to have a better striker next year if it's not Luis Suárez. And I think a lot of people think we will. And that would really surprise me. Maybe they're going to use a third DP spot on a striker, in which case you might be able to upgrade on Suárez. But, like, he's a superstar. And I get you can be frustrated and it doesn't always look pretty, but, like, that goal against Palmeiras was incredible. The goal numbers are not as good as they were last year, but they're still pretty good for a non-DP. He's probably the best non-DP in the league, if we're being totally honest. So, like, it's going to be hard to replace him, really, if this is true.
But the thing is, it's a diminishing return, right? So next year, going into the season, I don't know if he's able to keep up even this level that he set himself. So it's difficult for him to continue to play at the level that he's playing at.
Of course. But also, like, what he would be next year is going to be like a really good striker by MLS
I don't think so. I don't agree with that.
Yeah. See, we're going to fundamentally disagree here. But I think if you don't spend a DP spot on a striker, you're going to have worse striker play next year. If it's not Luis Suárez. I think people, like, Atlanta just went out and spent the MLS transfer record.
I'll be honest, man.
MLS transfer record.
Inter Miami doesn't rely on a striker to score its goals. We haven't been relying on Suárez to do those things for us. If we can get in a decent young striker who we can shape while Messi is here, I think that's okay.
I think that's a crazy statement to make, honestly. But we can disagree on it, and everyone in the chat can disagree on it. Disagree with me on it if you want.
Please do.
Sensitive about it, but no. Like, I mean this seriously. Emmanuel Latte-Lath, $22 million DP Atlanta brought in, and Suárez has absolutely outplayed him by like 10 times. Like, it's not even close. So the idea that you're just going to replace him effectively your first try is, I think, like, that's a lot of confidence to think you're going to do that. Now, listen, Suárez is the one in charge of this decision. Like, if he decides he wants to stay, he'll stay. And if he decides it's time to retire, he'll retire. But, and like, we could talk about team dynamics and running and pressing and all that other stuff. that maybe we want to make a bigger part of the team moving forward. But Suárez as an individual player is a superstar. He was the best striker in the league last year. And the truth is he might be the best striker in the league this year by the end of the season. So like that's on the table for him. So yeah, like I think this is a big deal both for Inter Miami and obviously for the world of soccer. We can do his eulogy if it actually comes to pass. But like I think Inter Miami fans should think about this as like a nervy situation for the striker moving forward. I really do. Nick Smith says the longer Scotty talks, the softer his voice gets. I apologize for that. I can kind of hear it, and I'm going to try and be better about that as we close out this podcast. Saur, anything else on your mind? Or are you just angry about Suárez potentially getting good words said about him?
No, I don't really care, man. As long as he can score the goals, that's all that matters. I spoke about Suárez pleasantly today. So as long as he's performing, I do not mind.
Let me check if there's been any updates on this Rodrigo De Paul situation of late, but it doesn't look like it. So we will end it there. Saur, Rodrigo De Paul could be the topic of our next conversation. There's a chance we go live tomorrow to talk about Inter Miami signing Rodrigo De Paul and what it all means. But if not, the next time you guys will see us is the pregame show before Wednesday night's game. We hope you join us 1 hour before kickoff live on YouTube. If you guys get in the chat, we're much more interactive. And if you're listening on podcast and you didn't realize we did that, you're definitely invited to come participate and be a part of it. Saur, any final words?
Bring on the next game, man. New England, probably easy, but then after that, it gets spicy. Game after game after game. Great place to be as a fan. See you all Wednesday.
Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in. Do us a favor and hit that like and subscribe button. Since our first viewer, sharing this with you all has been the very best part. So from the beginning until the end, thank you for being a part of this and have a wonderful day.